I'm Samantha, a professor at one of the city's top universities. Each day, I encounter countless students, their eyes brimming with ambition and hope. Yet one day, one of them swept me away from my professional boundaries, pulling me into a storm of passion and uncertainty. This tale isn't about pride or downfall. It delves into the complex and often tangled emotions that can emerge between two individuals, even when society frowns upon it. Will my life unravel? Or will I discover new purpose? Come along on this emotional journey with me. I recall that day as if it were yesterday. The sun shone brightly, and the heat hung heavy in the air, signaling the start of a new semester. I was at the board, getting ready for my first lecture, when the auditorium doors swung open. A familiar thrill coursed through me. I truly loved my job. Each new student felt like a blank page waiting to be filled. Today, my classroom buzzed with excitement as students settled in, whispering and flipping through their notebooks. I was accustomed to this lively atmosphere, but suddenly something unexpected caught my attention. At the back of the auditorium, a young man stood out from the crowd. He was tall, with short chestnut hair and deep brown eyes that conveyed both confidence and a hint of rebellion. He chose a seat in the last row, his gaze locked onto mine. "My name is Samantha Collins." I began my lecture, trying to ignore the intensity of his stare. "I'm your literature professor," I continued. The lecture progressed without any major incidents, yet every time I glanced up, I found him watching me intently. He was taking notes, and I could sense a growing tension between us. I tried to brush it off and concentrate on my teaching, but his presence was too powerful to overlook. After the lecture concluded, I gathered my belongings and made my way to the door. Just as I stepped out into the corridor, I heard his voice. "Professor Collins." I turned to find him standing there, his expression direct and resolute. "Can I ask you a few questions about today's lecture?" he inquired, taking a step closer. "Of course," I responded, attempting to mask the slight quiver in my voice. "What's your name?" "Ethan," he replied, extending his hand. "Ethan Carter." I shook his hand, feeling the warmth radiating from his skin. Ethan's questions were insightful and engaging, making it clear he was not like the other students. His genuine interest in literature intrigued me. We conversed for a few minutes, and I felt an invisible bond starting to form between us. "Thank you, Professor," he said as our chat wrapped up. "I found it very interesting," he added. "You're welcome, Ethan. If you have more questions, feel free to reach out." As he walked away, a strange exhilaration filled me. I understood I shouldn't harbor such feelings for a student, but everything about him, his presence, his curiosity, his eyes, made me feel vibrantly alive. That evening, thoughts of Ethan occupied my mind. His image lingered with me, and my heart raced at the mere thought of him. I recognized the inappropriateness of my feelings. I knew I should be focusing on my work and my husband, yet something about this young man drew me in. The following day, as I entered the auditorium, I spotted him again. Ethan was in his usual spot, his eyes once more fixed on me. I struggled to concentrate on the lecture, but his presence was too overwhelming. After class, we spoke again, and the tension between us intensified. The first week flew by in this manner. Each day, I saw him, and our conversations gradually turned more personal. Ethan began asking not just about literature, but also about my life and interests. I could sense an unspoken connection deepening between us, one that was hard to ignore. At the end of the week, Ethan proposed we grab a coffee. I knew it was wrong to accept, but my heart urged me to say yes. I agreed, and that choice transformed my life entirely. When I consented to meet Ethan for coffee, I was aware it might lead to something perilous. However, in that moment when our eyes met, all my reservations faded away. We selected a quaint little cafe near the university, a place where we could escape from curious eyes. The cafe's retro decor featured wooden tables and plush leather couches, with soft music playing in the background, creating an intimate atmosphere. I arrived early to calm my nerves and prepare for our meeting. I picked a table by the window, which provided a view of the city bathed in the gentle glow of streetlights. Inside me, two conflicting emotions battled. one of judgment and the other of eager anticipation. When Ethan walked into the cafe, my heart skipped a beat. He wore dark blue jeans and a light gray shirt, his hair slightly tousled, and a warm smile gracing his face. He approached my table, and I noticed a few girls at nearby tables glancing at him with interest. It was undeniable that Ethan was handsome. "Hello, Samantha," he greeted as he settled into the seat across from me. "Thanks for agreeing to meet." "Hi, Ethan," I replied, doing my best to mask my nervousness. "I'm glad you invited me." We placed our orders, and while we waited for our drinks, we chatted about neutral subjects. We discussed books, movies, and music, everything that connected us. As I spoke with him, my tension gradually melted away, replaced by genuine interest in this young man. "Samantha," Ethan said suddenly, his tone turning serious. "I want to know you better, not just as a professor, but as a person." His words felt like a challenge, stirring something new within me. At first, I tried to stay within boundaries, but his honesty and openness disarmed me. "You know, Ethan," I began, locking eyes with him, "I haven't felt this alive in ages. My life has become far too predictable and proper over the years. And you've reignited feelings I thought I had lost." Ethan reached out and touched my hand. The gesture was simple, yet it radiated warmth and understanding, compelling me to respond. Our hands intertwined, and I felt a spark leap between us. "Samantha," he said softly, "I feel the same way. You're more than just a professor to me. I want to be close to you and get to know you better." In that moment, I realized I could no longer deny my emotions. I understood the risks involved. It could jeopardize my career and my entire life. Yet, I couldn't turn away from what I was feeling. When our coffee arrived, we continued our conversation, but now it felt different. There was something deeper connecting us. We shared our dreams, fears, and aspirations. To my surprise, Ethan was quite mature for his age, and his words resonated with me more than I had anticipated. As the cafe started to close, we stepped outside. The night was warm and filled with stars, creating a unique ambience around us. We strolled down the street leisurely, savoring the comfortable silence that enveloped us. "Samantha," Ethan suddenly said, stopping and turning to face me. "May I kiss you?" His question took me by surprise, but I knew the answer had been nestled in my heart for quite some time. I nodded, and he gently pulled me closer. As our lips met, the world around us faded away. I felt his warmth envelop me, his arms holding me tightly, and his lips caressing mine with tenderness. The kiss was prolonged and passionate, overflowing with emotions we had both kept at bay for so long. When we finally separated, I saw a reflection of the same feelings in his eyes that I felt in my heart. "Ethan," I whispered, "I don't know what the future holds, but I can no longer deny my feelings." "Samantha," he replied, his voice brimming with confidence. "I'm ready to take that risk for you. I want to be with you, no matter what." We stood beneath the starry sky, enveloped in silence, and I realized I had made a choice that would forever alter the course of my life. This moment marked the beginning of our journey, filled with passion, pain, and joy. Although I was unsure of how it would conclude, I felt prepared to move forward, guided by my heart. The following weeks were a whirlwind of emotions and events. Ethan and I began meeting regularly, but we were careful to keep our feelings hidden within the university's walls. We maintained our roles as professor and student, upholding distance and professionalism, yet whenever we were alone, the outside world faded away, leaving just the two of us. One evening, after classes, Ethan suggested we meet in a nearby park. It was late, and I knew my husband, Daniel, would be working late. As a lawyer, Daniel often stayed at the office, which granted me time for our secret encounters. Deep down, guilt gnawed at me, but I couldn't resist the sense of youth and freedom Ethan brought back into my life, feelings I had long lost. The park was nearly deserted, with only a few couples wandering along the paths. The sky was sprinkled with stars, and a gentle breeze brushed against my skin. We found a secluded spot beneath a grand old oak tree, its sprawling branches seeming to shield us from prying eyes. "You look beautiful," Ethan said softly, holding my hand. "Every time I see you, my heart skips a beat." I smiled, warmth flooding through me from his words. We settled onto a bench, and I felt his arm encircle my waist. We chatted about many topics, books that had moved us, our future plans, our dreams. Ethan listened with rapt attention, his eyes glowing with interest and affection. "Samantha," he said after a thoughtful pause, "I never imagined I could fall in love so deeply. You've transformed my life." Tears threatened to spill from my eyes. His words felt like healing balm for my wounds. It had been far too long since I had heard such genuine confessions. "Ethan," I began, looking into his eyes, "you've changed my life too. You've made me feel alive again. But we must be cautious. If anyone discovers—" "I know," he interjected, gently placing a finger on my lips. "But I'm willing to take that risk for us. I want to be with you, no matter what." His determination filled me with warmth, swelling my heart with love. In that moment, I understood that I could no longer hide my feelings. We kissed, and it was a kiss brimming with passion and promise. His hands glided down my back, and I felt as though the world around us vanished entirely. "Let's dance," Ethan suddenly suggested with a smile. "Here?" I asked, taken aback, but I saw the resolve in his eyes. "Yes, right here under the stars. You'll be my only partner in this dance." I laughed, feeling my anxiety dissolve into pure joy. We stood, and he pulled me close. We began to sway to an invisible rhythm, moving in sync as if we were in our own world, free from rules or judgment. Each movement, each touch felt like magic. I felt his hands glide down my back, his lips brushing against my ear as he whispered sweet nothings. Our dance was filled with tenderness and passion, and I had never experienced such happiness. When we finally stopped, I gazed into his eyes and saw my own feelings reflected back at me. There we stood beneath the stars, wrapped in each other's arms, and I knew I was willing to make any sacrifice for this love. "Samantha," he said softly, caressing my face, "I want this moment to last forever." "So do I, Ethan," I whispered. "But we need to be careful. We have to find a way to be together without destroying our lives." "I know," he replied, determination evident in his voice. "I'll find a way. We will get through this." We spent the remainder of the evening walking through the park, savoring each other's company. Every moment with Ethan felt precious. I was aware that challenges lay ahead, but I was prepared to face them for the sake of this love, this feeling that had reignited my spirit. When I returned home, Daniel was already asleep. I quietly entered our bedroom, careful not to wake him, and in the darkness, I thought about Ethan, our meetings, and the plans we shared. I understood that the path I had chosen would be fraught with difficulties, but I was willing to walk it to the end, for love, for life, for us. This story was just beginning, and while I couldn't foresee its conclusion, lying there in the dark, I felt as though I had finally discovered what I had been searching for all my life. Love, passion, and meaning. I was ready to fight for it, no matter the cost. Several weeks had gone by since our midnight dance in the park, and my feelings for Ethan continued to intensify. I was aware of the risks associated with our meetings, yet I couldn't stop. Every moment spent with him filled me with pure happiness. One evening, Daniel came home with the news that he would be going on a business trip for a few days. A spark of joy ignited within me. Although I tried to conceal my true emotions, this was an opportunity to spend time with Ethan without the fear of being discovered. As soon as Daniel left, I texted Ethan, inviting him over for dinner at my house. His reply was immediate, brimming with excitement and eagerness. I spent the day eagerly preparing for our evening together, carefully choosing what to wear. I selected my favorite short skirt and a white blouse that hugged my curves perfectly. I wanted everything to be just right for Ethan. When he arrived, I greeted him at the door, and his eyes lit up at the sight of me, sending my heart racing. "You look stunning," he said as he stepped inside. "I can't believe this is real." "Thank you, Ethan," I replied, feeling heat rise to my cheeks. "I'm so glad you came." We sat down at the table, and I served dinner. We chatted, laughed, and enjoyed each other's company, every glance and touch making the evening feel special. The tension between us was palpable, our bodies yearning for one another. After dinner, we moved to the couch, and I poured us some wine. Our conversation shifted to a softer, more intimate tone. Ethan wrapped his arms around me, and I felt his lips brush against my ear. "Samantha," he whispered, "I can't wait any longer." I turned to face him, and as our eyes locked, I saw the same desire in his gaze that burned within me. We leaned in to kiss, first softly, then with growing intensity. His hands glided over my body, igniting a fire of desire within me. We slowly made our way to the bedroom, our kisses becoming more urgent and demanding. I felt his hands undressing me, his lips exploring every inch of my skin. When we fell onto the bed, I surrendered completely to the moment. Ethan was gentle yet attentive. His touch sent electric sparks coursing through me, and I lost myself in his kisses, his caresses, and his exploration of my body. It felt like more than just physical pleasure. It was a connection of souls, a true union. I embraced him, feeling our hearts beating in unison as we savored each moment. Waves of pleasure washed over me, one after another, and with every peak I reached, I heard Ethan whispering my name. It was an unforgettable experience, and I knew this evening would be etched in my memory forever. When we finally paused, I lay in his arms, feeling his breath gradually slow. We were exhausted yet blissful, and I nestled closer to him, savoring his warmth and strength. "Samantha," Ethan said softly, kissing my forehead. "I never thought I could love someone this much." "Me too, Ethan," I replied, gazing into his eyes. "You've made me the happiest woman in the world." We lay in silence, basking in our closeness. In that moment, I realized I was ready to make any sacrifice for this love. Ethan meant everything to me, and I couldn't imagine my life without him. After that unforgettable night with Ethan, I felt as if I were floating on clouds. We spent every spare moment together, cherishing our secret world, free from judgment and restrictions. Yet reality always has a way of pulling us back down. Soon, I began to sense the creeping shadows of doubt and fear hovering over us. When Daniel returned from his trip, I tried to act normally, but our conversations felt short and formal, and I could tell he had started to notice the changes in me. I tried to convince myself that everything was under control, but inside, my anxiety grew. One evening, when Daniel was working late, Ethan came over. We decided to spend a quiet evening together, enjoying each other's presence. I prepared a light dinner, and we sat in the kitchen, talking and laughing. "Samantha," Ethan began, his tone suddenly serious, "I think we need to discuss our future." I froze at his words. I knew this conversation was inevitable, but I wasn't prepared for it. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to mask my nervousness. "I love you," he continued, looking deep into my eyes. "And I don't want to hide anymore. I want to be with you openly, without fear or lies." His words hit me like a lightning bolt. I knew he was right, yet the thought of tearing my family apart was unbearable. "Ethan, I love you too," I admitted, tears welling in my eyes. "But I'm scared. I'm terrified of what will happen if all of this comes to light." "Samantha." His voice softened. "I understand your fear, but we can't live in fear forever. We deserve to be happy." I knew he was right, but the decision was far from easy. We spent the evening wrapped in each other's arms, discussing our feelings and what the future might hold. I realized that this conversation was just the beginning, and difficult decisions loomed ahead. In the days that followed, I tried to concentrate on my work, but thoughts of Ethan were ever present. We continued to meet, yet the tension between us grew. I felt as though we were teetering on the edge, where one misstep could lead to disaster. One evening, when I returned home, I found Daniel waiting for me in the living room. His expression was grim, and a knot formed in my stomach. "Samantha," he began, his voice icy. "We need to talk." I sat down across from him, engulfed by fear. Daniel handed me his phone, the screen displaying an open message from Ethan. "What does this mean?" he asked, locking his gaze onto mine. The world around me crumbled. I understood that my secret was exposed, and there was no way to turn back. "Daniel," I started, trying to hold back my tears. "It's not what you think." "Not what I think," he interrupted, his voice quaking with anger. "You're cheating on me, Samantha. How could you?" I could no longer keep up the facade. Tears streamed down my face, and my heart shattered into pieces. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I never wanted it to turn out this way, but I fell in love with him. I can't control it." Daniel stood up, his face etched with pain and disappointment. "I thought we were happy," he said bitterly. "How could you betray me like this?" "I'm so sorry, Daniel," I repeated, choking on my tears. "I never meant to hurt you." He fell silent for several minutes before speaking again. "I think we need time to think things over. I'll leave for a few days to give you space to sort out your feelings." With those words, he exited the house, leaving me alone in the silence and darkness. I sank to my knees, feeling as if the world around me was collapsing. Ethan was right. We couldn't live in fear and lies forever. But now that the truth was out, I had no idea what to do next. In the days that followed, I avoided Ethan, trying to sort through my emotions and make a decision. I knew I couldn't hide the truth any longer, but taking that step felt like it would destroy my family. I felt lost and alone, uncertain of what lay ahead. The days after my conversation with Daniel dragged on painfully. I tried to organize my thoughts to figure out my next move, but chaos reigned within me. Daniel was gone, and his absence was both a relief and a source of anguish. I kept my distance from Ethan, unsure how to explain my situation to him. One morning, while sitting in the kitchen contemplating the future, I heard a knock at the door. When I opened it, there stood Daniel. His face was serious, but his eyes revealed no anger, only deep sadness. "Samantha, we need to talk," he said as he entered the house. I nodded, inviting him into the kitchen. We sat at the table, and my heart tightened with anticipation. "I've thought a lot," Daniel began, his voice calm but firm. "I've come to the conclusion that I can't forgive you for the affair." His words felt like a death sentence. I struggled to hold back tears, but they threatened to spill. "Daniel," I started to say, but he raised his hand to stop me. "Please let me finish," he said. "I understand that you've fallen in love with Ethan, and maybe that feeling is stronger than what we have. But I can't live with the fact that you've betrayed my trust. So, I've decided to file for divorce." I sat in silence, feeling the ground beneath me crumble. His words pierced my heart like a knife, but I knew he was right. I had betrayed him, and now we both had to bear the consequences. "I understand," I whispered, tears streaming down my cheeks. "I'm so sorry it turned out this way." Daniel nodded, his face a mixture of sadness and resolve. "I've already spoken to a lawyer. We can settle the divorce amicably, without any scandals. I want you to know that despite everything, I'll always cherish our happy moments." Those words struck me like a final blow. I realized I had lost him forever. Daniel stood and walked toward the door, leaving me alone in the silence and darkness. After he left, I remained in the kitchen for a long time, trying to process what had just happened. The divorce was inevitable, and I knew I had to accept it. Yet a void settled within me, one that nothing could fill. In the following days, I finalized the divorce papers and handed them to Daniel. He remained calm and professional, and I knew he had made his decision final. We agreed to part ways without unnecessary drama or disputes, but every time I saw him, my heart broke all over again. Once all the formalities were taken care of, I finally decided to meet with Ethan. I invited him over, and when he arrived, concern and anxiety filled his expression. We sat in the living room, and I recounted everything that had happened. "Ethan," I began, looking deeply into his eyes. "Daniel has filed for divorce. I'm free, but I don't know what to do next. My life is in ruins." Ethan took my hand, his eyes filled with sympathy and determination. "Samantha," he said gently, "I know this is hard for you right now, but I'm here for you. I love you, and I'm ready to help you through this." His words felt like a soothing balm for my wounds, and I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. We embraced, and in that moment, I realized that despite all the challenges we faced, our love had endured. In the weeks that followed, Ethan and I began to rebuild our lives together. We spent much of our time discussing our plans and dreams. I knew new challenges lay ahead, but I was confident that together we could overcome any obstacle. My divorce from Daniel was a painful lesson, but it also provided me with the chance to start anew with Ethan. I felt vibrant and joyful, knowing that our love was worth every sacrifice. Several months had passed since my divorce from Daniel was finalized, and during that time, I experienced both challenging moments and delightful discoveries. I gradually adapted to my new life, learning to be independent and uncovering new sources of strength and inspiration. Ethan stood by me, supporting me every step of the way and making each day feel special. We moved into a charming little house on the outskirts of the city, surrounded by lush trees and blooming gardens. This house became a symbol of our new beginning, a sanctuary where we could build our future free from fear and deceit. Life with Ethan overflowed with love, passion, and laughter. We discovered happiness in the little things, cherishing every moment we spent together. One warm summer evening, we sat on the porch of our home, watching the sunset. I leaned against Ethan, soaking in his warmth and confidence. "Samantha," he began, gazing at me tenderly, "I'm so happy to have you in my life. You've changed me and made me a better person." I smiled, my heart swelling with joy at his words. "I'm happy too, Ethan," I replied. "You've given me back the joy of life and shown me what it means to be truly loved." We sat in comfortable silence, basking in the sunset, when Ethan suddenly stood up and faced me. His eyes sparkled with determination and love. "Samantha," he said, dropping to one knee and holding out a small box. "I know our story has been complicated and filled with challenges, but I want to spend the rest of my life with you. You are my one and only. Will you marry me?" My heart raced, and tears of joy streamed down my cheeks. I couldn't believe this moment was finally here. "Yes, Ethan," I responded without hesitation. "I will marry you." He slipped the ring onto my finger, and we embraced, feeling our future come to life. This moment marked the beginning of a new chapter for us, filled with hope and dreams. Our wedding plans were simple and intimate. We chose to hold the ceremony by a lakeside, surrounded by a forest. This beautiful landscape symbolized the peace and joy we had found in our love. On the day of the wedding, as I walked down the aisle, my heart overflowed with happiness and gratitude. Ethan stood by the lake, his eyes radiant with love and joy. The ceremony was heartfelt and straightforward. We exchanged vows, promising to love and support each other through all of life's challenges. When Ethan placed the ring on my finger, the world around me felt brighter and warmer. After the ceremony, we hosted a small reception for our friends and family. The evening was filled with laughter, music, and dancing. I twirled with Ethan under the stars, feeling his arms envelop me tightly, and I realized that our love was stronger than any obstacle we faced. As the evening wound down, we returned to our new home, where a romantic candlelit dinner awaited us. We sat at the table, enjoying each other's company and discussing our future. I felt our bond deepen, and I knew we could tackle any challenges that came our way. The next day, we embarked on our honeymoon, choosing a secluded spot along the coast where we could revel in each other's presence and nature. Those days were filled with joy and serenity. We strolled along the beach, swam in the ocean, and marveled at both sunsets and sunrises, cherishing every moment together. Upon our return home, I felt ready to embrace new challenges and adventures. Ethan and I began to build a life rooted in love, trust, and support. We vowed to remain open to new experiences and face any difficulties together. Our life wasn't perfect, and we encountered our fair share of problems and trials, but our love and mutual support helped us navigate through all obstacles. Ethan became not just my husband, but also my best friend, the one with whom I could share all my thoughts and dreams. Years passed, and our love continued to strengthen. We savored every moment together, uncovering new horizons and opportunities. I felt that our union was blessed, and I knew that many more happy moments awaited us in the future.